Welcome to the Vital Spirit podcast. I'm Dr. Kelly Livingston, a naturopathic physician and your guide to a new health reality, one that connects body, mind, and spirit. Together, we'll dive deep into the art and science of holistic healing. Through working with hundreds of women through midlife transitions, I've discovered something profound. Most of our physical and emotional challenges are rooted in a maladaptive stress response. And true healing begins when we regulate our nervous system. Each episode will explore complex health topics in simple, empowering ways, uncover the deeper wisdom within each of us, and share practical tools for nervous system regulation to help you awaken your vital force and create lasting wellness. So, if you're ready to reconnect with yourself, your health, and your purpose, let's begin this journey together so you can experience life more fully human and deeply healed. Hi, and welcome to the Vital Spirit podcast. I'm Dr. Kelly Livingston, and today we're talking all about why having a health philosophy matters on your healing journey and how to cultivate healing with what I like to call the seeds of health. Before we do that, I'm going to share a quote that I have at the beginning of a journal I provide to patients who join me in my 12-week group program called From Burnout to Balance. If you would like this journal, it does include some information on what the seeds of health are and how you can weave them into your daily life, as well as a helpful morning and evening routine. And so you can download that in the show notes. The journal itself starts with a quote from Khalil Gibran, who is someone I've found to be really inspirational in my healing journey. I've been reading his work since my dad shared some of his books with me, in particular, The Prophet, when I was really young. So this quote says, "In the depths of your hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond. And like seeds dreaming beneath the snow, your heart dreams of spring. Trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity." And so I like to think of watering these seeds of health as watering those tiny little seeds that are quiet and dormant during the winter time, and they're just waiting to pop out for spring, which is really appropriate because here in the Northeast of the United States of America, it is winter and it is cold, and I am waiting for all of those seeds to pop out and show us their green and vibrant colors and bring the joy of springtime. So with that, let's dive into what a health philosophy is and why it matters and how you can use the seeds of health on your healing journey. The reason I wanted to talk about the seeds of health today before I jump into pillar 3 of the Vital Spirit method is because pillar 3 is all about nourishing vitality and balancing hormones, optimizing neurotransmitters, increasing mitochondrial health. But we have to pause and ask, how do we build a body that is ready to heal? In last week's episode, we talked all about the vagus nerve and vagal tone and how to get the nervous system into a healing state. So today I want to talk a little bit more about a health philosophy and how we work on putting the body into a state so that it can heal. I founded Roots Deep Medicine Clinic in 2013 as a new naturopathic physician. And it was really founded on the principle that the body heals when given the right conditions. I have a wonderful, cute little story about my niece. And she is really young and just coming into her voice. And she just turned 2. And I taught her that the body heals. And so one day she had a boo-boo, and my daughter and I were explaining to her that the body heals and it was going to get better. It was going to repair. She was going to feel better. The pain would go away. And we kept saying, the body heals, the body heals. And now this has become a bit of her mantra. And I have these wonderful videos my sister has shared with me of her saying, the body heals, the body heals. And it just warms my heart so much because I know that going forward, even though she's young, she's going to remember that the body heals. And that's truly what a health philosophy is. When I founded Roots Deep Medicine, I founded it on the philosophical principles and tenets of naturopathic medicine. And healing is not about fighting disease. It's about creating the conditions for health. And disease cannot occur where there is true health. I had a great talk with a friend after yoga class today, and I was explaining that the reason I'm doing this podcast, the reason I put out educational content aside from honoring my philosophical tenet as doctor, as teacher, is because most patients come to see me when there is some disease or dis-ease in their body, when there are symptoms that they don't want to be experiencing anymore. And even though one of our principles is prevention, and I love to optimize health and talk about all those deeper topics of individuation and self actualization, if patients are struggling on a physical plane, then they can't quite get there. And so, a lot of what I would like to provide with this material is educational content around how the body heals and how you can embrace a health philosophy that really creates the conditions for health and pushes out or doesn't allow the conditions for disease. So, what are those conditions for health? You certainly can go back to some of our initial podcast episodes and learn more about that. But essentially, this is where having a health philosophy matters most. Health is more than just the absence of disease, it's a dynamic state of physical, mental, emotional, and social well being. And all of these aspects of health are interacting with one another. And that's what I love about holistic medicine. There's so many different levers that we can pull that can impact our health outcome. So, how do we determine the best path to health? Well, the choices we make, what we eat, how we move, how we handle stress, how much sleep we get, they all stem from something deeper, our health philosophy. What are your values around health? That is going to impact every single choice that you make about your health and about your daily life and your practices on a daily plane of existence. So if you don't believe that your body can heal and you have no control over a health or disease process, well, of course, you're not going to put the effort into healing, right? A health philosophy is the lens through which we view health and healing. It shapes whether or not we focus on building health or merely managing disease. Are we just having conversations with patients who show up once disease has occurred, once their blood work does not look fine anymore? Or are we optimizing our health and wellness to prevent disease? A strong health philosophy helps us to take an integrative approach where we're combining scientific and more humanistic psychology methods to understand health. We're improving patient care. We're truly addressing the whole person, not just their symptoms. And we're addressing public health challenges when we have a health philosophy. We're recognizing that biological, behavioral, and social factors are influencing health. We're engaging in more of a philosophical conversation or using critical thinking and self reflection and having an open dialogue around health. So you can see it opens up a lot more avenues around healing than just merely treating disease or suppressing symptoms. A health philosophy also helps us to examine the ethics and processes of healthcare, and it helps to shape the decisions that we make around our health and around essentially whether or not we're willing to suppress a symptom or if we're going to look for a root cause and look for the reason why our body is experiencing that symptom. Discussions around health and ethics and really bioethics is something I was very drawn to from a young age. In undergrad, when I was a psychology major and philosophy minor, I created this submajor in bioethics. And that was really because of the experience I had as an 8-year-old. And my brother was born missing the right ventricle of his heart, so essentially half his heart, and went through a lot of major procedures at a really young age. And so, being a really inquisitive 8-year-old, I was reflecting a lot on the decision making process, watching my parents make really hard decisions around my brother's health. I was having conversations with his surgeon and the doctors around potential outcomes, and it just interested me in how we make decisions around health. And so, how you define your health philosophy, in my opinion, is extremely important in the outcome that you're going to have as you navigate not only midlife transitions, but any major health issues that arise. Your health philosophy is something that you can consciously shape over time. So you can explore different perspectives, research, learn from practitioners, talk with people around you who seem to be optimizing their well being. Write down what you believe. What do you feel supports vitality? How much control do you think you have around your health? And start to define your core principles around health and engage in experiment. So, health is not static. You can try new approaches, track how you're feeling. If you make changes, do you feel better? Do you feel worse? What's helping? What's not? And be a real active participant in your health. If patients come to see me and they're able to say, I've tried this and it hasn't worked, or I've tried that and it helped with this aspect of my journey, it's very helpful and useful information when I'm designing their individualized protocol. And really start to listen to your body. We've talked about this in other episodes. Your body is always speaking to you, and you can learn to interpret its signals. True healing comes from tuning into the body's messages, tuning into the body's wisdom, and responding to its needs. When you're just suppressing a symptom, you have no idea why that symptom occurred. And if you can engage with compassionate inquiry around your symptoms and the things you're experiencing, both in your mental and physical health, then the end result is true healing and not a disease state. So, as you listen today, I want you to really think about how you define health. How would you define your health goals? What are they? What do you want your health journey to look like? What do you want those end results to be? I talk in my free webinar that's on my website about the line of fine and going beyond the line of fine. Typically, again, patients show up in the office when there are symptoms or something's come up in blood work. But what if you were to sit down and right now write down the health outcomes that you want for your life and start to think about how you can actively participate in achieving those health outcomes and moving beyond that line of fine to real optimal health and wellness? When I founded Roots Deep Medicine Clinic in 2013, I had to think on our philosophy, our mission statement. And so the Roots Deep Medicine philosophy is very simple but profound. And that is that the body heals when given the right conditions. Just like my niece has been learning, the body heals. And so our mission at Roots Deep, and really in all of the work that I do one-on-one with patients and here educating all of you, is to provide an individualized, holistic medicine environment that supports mind, body, and spirit. I create a safe healing environment that honors the body's innate intelligence and addresses the root cause of illness. And I empower patients to transform personal, family, and community health through daily habits and conscious health choices. So, this is our health philosophy at Roots Deep. And this philosophy aligns with naturopathic medicine's foundational principle, the healing power of nature. So, to truly understand health, we also have to know why disease occurs. And I want to talk a little bit about Lindlar's nature cure and the tree of disease and how that can come into play as you define your health philosophy. Some of the true giants in nature cure whose shoulders I stand on, such as Dr. Benedict Lust, Sebastian Kniep, and Henry Lindlar, really helped to shape the nature cure philosophy that influences naturopathic medicine today. And so I revisit these key themes time and time again. And today we're going to talk some more about Lindlar's nature cure. Lindlar's approach was based on working with the laws of nature rather than against them. So, what are some of the key principles of Lindlar's nature cure? Well, first is the unity of disease and cure. So, all disease is fundamentally the same: the body's attempt to eliminate toxins and restore balance or homeostasis. Next is the law of self healing. So the body heals when provided with clean air, water, food, rest, movement, and emotional balance. And this law truly informs my seeds of health we're about to talk about. And then the therapeutic order. Now, remember, we talked all about this in a previous episode, so go back and listen if you missed that. But healing occurs in a specific order, starting with foundational lifestyle and dietary changes before moving up to higher interventions when necessary. And then we remove the cause. We don't suppress the symptoms. So, symptoms are the body's attempt to heal. Suppressing them drives disease deeper. And disease is a healing crisis. Acute illness is essentially a detoxification process or an inflammatory process. And chronic illness results from years of suppression and toxic accumulation. So, again, when patients come in to see me with a chronic illness, I know that there's quite a bit of kind of digging out from under that chronic disease state that we'll be doing But I also know that if we give the body the tools that it needs to heal and we provide the conditions for healing, the body is built to do that. And then food as medicine. A clean, whole food diet is essential for restoring health. And when Lindlar described this, he uses a really wonderful metaphor of a tree, essentially. And I have a great bumper sticker with this tree on it. I meant to bring it in for filming today, and I forgot it. So I will put a show note, or you can Google the UPAS tree of disease, and you'll find an image of Lindlar's tree of disease. And I highly recommend that you follow along and look at that while I'm going through this. So, when we're talking about the tree of disease, the roots or some of the causes of disease are going to be ignorance or lack of knowledge about how to care for the body, indifference, not prioritizing health, and lack of self control or self indulgence. So, making poor dietary and lifestyle choices that violate the body's needs. Now, this is not to promote any sort of victim mentality or blaming patients, but there is a large degree of awakening that really has to occur in a patient so that they realize that their choices are impacting their health every single day. Sure, genetics and epigenetics play a role. Sure, environment plays a role. But the reality is that the choices you make about your health or wellness are the biggest factors in your healing journey. And so, not having knowledge about how to care for the body, not prioritizing health, and not having any sort of control around those choices are really the causes of disease. And one of the things that I was sharing with my friend after yoga today, again, in my goal as providing educational material, is that if all people knew how to take care of their body, if we knew exactly what to do, then disease would not be occurring at the level that it is in society today. So that's a huge goal of mine. And it really is a reflection of this education I got and received in the naturopathic therapeutic order and nature cure from heroes like Lindlar. Next is the trunk, so the effects on the body. And so if you're looking at that tree of disease, if you look that up, you'll see lowered vitality. So the body's resilience weakens as toxic blood and lymph accumulate. So things like poor digestion and elimination lead to internal toxicity. We talked about how this shows up in hormones, in blood work. We talked about the gut-brain axis and the gut hormone connection. So all of that is really revolving around that stagnant blood and stagnant lymph and not moving our bowels. Stagnation is a breeding ground for inflammation in the body. And you'll see again listed in that trunk accumulation of morbid matter and poisons. So environmental toxins, metabolic waste, suppressed illness, all building up in the system if things are not moving through and detoxing and processing. And then you'll see the branches of the tree are symptoms of disease. So, chronic conditions like autoimmune disorders, hormonal imbalances, digestive issues. These are just the physical manifestations or visible manifestations of deeper imbalances, kind of like the tip of an iceberg, right? There's something underneath it, but all you're seeing are the outward symptoms that your body is exhibiting. And suppressing symptoms or cutting off branches does not heal the disease. It just allows it to grow deeper, and suppression just pushes those toxicities deeper. Okay, so what do we do if we have a diseased tree, right? Well, true healing comes from uprooting the tree by restoring vitality. So, using things like rest, fresh air, movement, hydrotherapy, relaxation. These are all the foundations of nature cure by purifying blood and lymph through detox, fasting when warranted, proper elimination, and by eliminating morbid matter. So, supporting the body's detox pathways naturally. So, this was written a long time ago. The language might not resonate, but essentially, you need things moving through the body. And as naturopathic physicians, we provide this solution through modalities that utilize nature cure. And so this is where the seeds of health come in. The seeds of health are essential because they remove the roots of disease and they cultivate conditions where healing thrives. But you truly need to have a health philosophy that empowers you, where you feel like the changes you make will actually make a difference. And that's why understanding your health philosophy and your why are you making these changes is so key on any healing journey. So, as I work with patients through all of the pillars of the Vital Spirit method, we're always working on our seeds of health. So, you can picture each little seed as something that you're going to water and cultivate, and it's going to grow into this beautiful plant. And all of those seeds of health are going to contribute to creating the conditions of health where disease cannot occur. So, the seeds of health for me at Roots Deep Medicine are mindfulness and breath work, hydration and hydrotherapy, lymph love, food as medicine, movement, relationships and community, spirit and time and nature, and sleep. I'm going to move through the seeds of health a little bit quickly today so that you can see what all of them are. And then as I continue to record episodes and have some guests on, I'm hoping to dive even deeper into these topics. So, first is mindfulness and breath. And we talked a lot about these in the previous episodes. So, why does this matter? Well, the nervous system must be regulated, and getting into that parasympathetic rest, digest, and heal state for healing to occur. So, some examples of practices that might be watering this seed of health of mindfulness and breath would be a daily breathwork practice or yoga, heart rate variability training, vagus nerve exercises, a daily mindfulness practice. So, in my group program and when I'm working with patients through the Vital Spirit method, we talk about magic mindful moments and really cultivating an existence of mindfulness throughout our day. I usually list mindfulness and breathwork as the first seed of health because, again, go back to the first few episodes. It's all about getting your nervous system into a regulated state, but also having the flexibility to come in and out of regulation and dysregulation, returning back to homeostasis. And then next is hydration and hydrotherapy. From now on, I really won't rank them in any particular order. I'm just going to go down my list and make sure that I don't forget any for you. So, why do hydration and hydrotherapy matter? Well, the body is mostly water. And hydration impacts digestion, detoxification, circulation, energy, how well things like vitamins and nutrients are moving in and out of your cells. And so, some of the practices that you can use are things like drinking half your body weight in ounces of water per day so that you're getting that hydration. And if you have anything dehydrating, make sure to counter that with an extra glass of water. And then considering things like lemon water in the morning to start your digestion off, and maybe some fresh ginger tea to keep your bowels moving regularly. And then I always put hydrotherapy, which is again a tool that we use as naturopathic physicians in this category. And so that includes things like contrast showers or contrast hydrotherapy, alternating hot cold. I always put things like Epsom salt baths in this category as well. When I first started talking about my seeds of health, I didn't have a separate category for lymph, but because I use a lot of energy medicine and drainage remedies in the beginning of working with someone, I felt like lymph deserved its own category. So, why does this matter? Well, the lymphatic system is the drainage system of the body, and when stagnant, detoxification slows. It's also sending messages throughout our body. And so, I might work on an energetic realm on drainage, but I also will have patients do things like manual lymph massage and dry skin brushing. Castor oil packs are something that fall in this category. Sauna and movement also will help lymph. So, whenever you're moving your muscles, your lymph actually doesn't have any pump to move it the way your blood does in your cardiovascular system. So, movement's always going to help with that lymphatic flow. And again, things like Epsom salt baths or anything that enhances detoxification. Food as medicine is a big one in our seeds of health. Why does this matter? Well, every single bite that you take can be poison or it can be medicine. And every single bite of food is communicating with your hormones. It's impacting your gut, which is impacting then your brain. And a huge part of my practice is really focused on neuroinflammation and reducing inflammation via that gut brain axis. And food is the most powerful tool we have to do this. So, you can go back to our gut hormone episode where I talk all about some of the more inflammatory foods to avoid. For a lot of people, those are things like processed foods, trans fats, dairy, gluten, sugar, preservatives. And we talk all about eating the rainbow. I've made a lot of posts on Instagram about this and phytonutrients and why a variety of different colors in your diet is so key. And in this category, I'm always talking about getting enough fiber to fuel all of the good bacteria in our gut and feed those short chain fatty acids. And I talk a lot around prioritizing whole foods. So, whole foods and plant based, but also making sure to get enough protein and healthy fat. So, food as medicine is a really big seed of health that I will likely have a whole episode devoted to. And it's something that we work closely on throughout our journey at Roots Deep Medicine and through the Vital Spirit method. Next is movement, which is so important for so many health conditions. So, movement is medicine for your mitochondria, for your lymphatic system, for your nervous system, obviously for your cardiovascular system. Most people realize that having a healthy exercise routine is going to help prevent cardiovascular disease. So, daily movement that elevates your heart rate. I also include things like yoga and stretching and mobility work here, and really body knowledge exercises so that you can start to listen to what your body needs. I do a lot of work with somatic therapies and somatic experiencing type therapies with patients. And so tapping into the knowledge and wisdom in your body is something that essentially we can cultivate or get better at the more that we have a movement practice. And I don't just consider this exercise. So it's not just lifting weights for healthy bone density and healthy metabolism. It's not just getting your heart rate up, but it's also moving things like emotion and breath work through the body as well. Next is relationships and connection. So, co regulation is healing. We talked about this in our last episode, and our nervous system thrives in connection. We're connecting with another regulated nervous system. And I've talked a lot in the past around the health risks of loneliness and not having community or support. There are profound impacts on a healing journey when you're doing it with others and maybe sharing recipes or health habits that work for you, or just getting positive feedback from someone else going through the journey. So, connecting with others is a really important seed of health, and it looks different for everyone. So, things like nourishing friendships and having connection to community where maybe you're volunteering your time and doing things for others. In this seed of health, I talk a lot with patients around nonviolent communication, which I'm sure I'll have an episode on too. Engaging in acts of generosity or kindness, which can actually increase our serotonin and make us feel a lot better. And I talk about exploring different therapies like internal family systems or family constellations therapy when I'm watering the seed of health with patients as well. And next is spirit and time and nature. And this is important because nature, in my health philosophy, is the original healer. It resets the nervous system, it supports mental health, provides deep restoration. All of the natural tools that I use come from nature. So, spending time outside and connecting with something bigger than ourselves and connecting with that spirit of nature is a key to the seed of health, as well as going deeper within and connecting to yourself. So, the easiest way that I can introduce patients to some sort of spirituality practice is just tapping into that inner knowing, having a gratitude practice, exploring what your purpose is, maybe doing some archetype exercises. I would actually put heart math or heart coherence and a deep breathing practice into this category as well. So you'll see there's some overlap in the seeds of health, but essentially getting outside and connecting with nature and having a practice that taps into your internal knowing would be highlights of this category. And the last seed of health we'll touch on today is sleep. So, sleep is maybe one of the most important seeds of health, and one of the things that I'll focus on first with patients, because if you're not getting into that rest, digest, and heal state with sleep, you're absolutely going to struggle with achieving your health goals. Sleep's also really important for our lymphatic system. So your brain shrinks while you're sleeping and your brain is detoxing and almost getting a little clean. So it's really important for brain fog and a lot of the symptoms that women come to see me complaining of in their first visit. So some of the strategies around healthy sleep would be having a healthy relationship with the rhythms in nature and the light of nature. So exposing your eyes to sunlight outside when you first wake up in the morning and trying to avoid caffeine for at least 60 to 90 minutes. And then really being diligent about dimming the lights at night and having your electronics off and avoiding screens. I usually say by 9 p.m. and aiming to be asleep around 10 p.m. and then again up around 6 a.m. with that light. So when we operate with the rhythms of nature, we're going to be much less likely to struggle with sleep. And having regulating rituals at night, which again overlap with some of our other seeds of health, like mindfulness or taking an Epsom salt bath at night to get into that rest and relaxed state, are really key to this sleep seed of health. So, in the journal that I'm going to share with you, if you're interested, I have a section called Root to Rise and then a Shutdown to Reboot. And these are morning and evening routines that help with this sleep seed of health. And these practices really are preparing your body for deeper healing interventions that we might do together. So when I'm working with a patient, these seeds of health evolve. Like I said, we're watering them and they grow. So in the beginning, we just might be making sure you're getting hydrated in the hydration and hydrotherapy section. And then as we move on, maybe we've added in Epsom salt baths and contrast showers and tea therapeutically or tinctures, using herbal tinctures in the hydration section. So these seeds grow into healthy, vibrant plants that create the foundations for healing. And we continue to water them as we move through the pillars of the Vital Spirit method. So it might be helpful for you to have a sample patient or a case study. And I think we could jump into that now. So, to see how the seeds of health work, let's consider a patient in her 40s and she's struggling with chronic stress. She has really bad, poor sleep when she first comes. She is not able to fall asleep. Then, when she falls asleep, she's waking up. Sometimes she's waking at 3, 4 a.m., unable to go back to sleep. And she has some digestive issues, some gas and bloating. So, she's been pushing through her life, balancing work, balancing family, and not really focused on any sort of health philosophy. Just, beyond that line of fine is not something that she's focused on at this point. She's just focused on getting through daily life. So even engaging in a conversation around what is the health philosophy was the first step on her healing journey. So she had some bloating and constipation, that disrupted sleep I mentioned, and therefore fatigue and really low resilience to stress. So anytime anyone in her family got sick, she was getting it as well. She had a history of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and past antibiotic use that led to some of that gut dysbiosis that created the breeding ground for SIBO. And she had really high cortisol levels when we first started working together, but she reported feeling wired but tired, kind of burnt out, but still, again, unable to relax, unable to take time to meditate or have a breathwork practice. And this is a classic case of the body being unable to heal because it's operating in chronic stress. And that in her situation was increasing, remember that tree of disease. It was increasing toxicity. There was essentially morbid matter accumulating, and cellular healing and repair was not occurring. So instead of jumping into a more aggressive gut clearing or RID protocol, we started with helping the body heal. And we started with the Seeds of Health framework. So hydration and hydrotherapy was one of the first things that I did with her, and making sure that she was just getting enough water. And waking up in the morning when she was making her lemon water to start the day, I was having her expose her eyes to sunlight to help correct her circadian rhythm and cortisol pattern. She was also drinking fresh ginger root tea throughout the day to help with her bowel movements and detoxification. And at night, I was having her take an Epsom salt bath when she was able for the magnesium, for the relaxation ritual. And then she was doing a castor oil pack over her liver and abdomen area at night when she fell asleep. And she did really, really well with those. All of those were also supporting her lymphatic system and detox. And when she had time, I was recommending that she get to an infrared sauna, which she really enjoyed. And even though she was a little bit resistant to breath work and a mindfulness practice at first, I found that when she was in the sauna or when she was doing an Epsom salt bath or a castor oil pack, that was a time when she was really receptive to listening to a guided meditation or practicing a few minutes of deep diaphragmatic belly breathing. As we were using those strategies, we also focused on food as medicine and reducing gut inflammation and repairing her gut lining. So we removed inflammatory foods for 30 days and we focused on gut healing foods like bone broth, omega fatty acids, fermented vegetables in small amounts, and we increased her variety of fiber intake to feed beneficial gut bacteria and her short chain fatty acids, which provide that environment for gut healing. And we added some digestive support before meals. So she was using some simple bitter herbs before meals, which also help with vagal tone and getting her body into the healing state. Within 3 weeks, she noticed digestion had normalized. So she was less bloated. She had improved gut motility. So she was having better, healthier bowel movements. And she definitely noticed that she was less sensitive to foods that had been triggering her bloating before. She was having more restorative sleep. So she started to wake feeling rested. She wasn't waking up in the middle of the night as much. And so, therefore, her energy levels had really stabilized. And she wasn't relying on sugar and caffeine as much, which were also dysregulating her nervous system. And we noticed that her hormone balance started shifting. So she had also had some PMS symptoms, and those had really improved, and she had more stable moods. And that was just from focusing on some simple seeds of health to start before we even had blood work. So, why do the seeds of health work? Well, in her case, she wasn't fighting the SIBO with a die off protocol. She was really creating the conditions for her gut to do the healing work. And SIBO and dysbiosis in general are usually symptoms of a deeper imbalance. So, by supporting digestion, lowering her stress, and increasing her ability to handle stress, so increasing her resilience and restoring gut motility, her microbiome naturally rebounded. And she focused on regulation, not restriction. So instead of eliminating every food that had been triggering her, we really prioritized on the major inflammatory foods. And then we added in a lot of nutrient density and nervous system balancing foods to her diet, along with hydration. And her body responded really well when it felt safe. So, in order for us to feel safe and be in that healing state, we have to feel safe in our body. I talk about this in my other episodes as well. And so, by doing some simple vagal toning exercises and helping to regulate her nervous system, she did notice better energy, better digestion, better sleep, so many improvements just from focusing on some basics. This is such a great example of why healing is not about fancy protocols or devices. It's about preparing the body to heal. Before I jump into hormone balance or gut clearing interventions, I really try to focus with every patient on removing the obstacles to cure and reestablishing the foundations for health with our seeds of health. And that's why watering the seeds of health is really a non negotiable for long term well being. We all have this healing force within us that can transform not only our own health, but also the well being of our families and communities. If you're ready to tap into yours, then you can start small. It doesn't require an overhaul overnight. You can choose just one seed today and begin to water it and cultivate the conditions for deep, lasting vitality. I promise you, your future self will thank you. And if you have any 2-year olds watching like I did, you're going to teach them that the body heals. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear the message that the body heals. And your next step, if you're interested, is to download that Seeds of Health journal. And by doing so, you'll join the wait list for the next time that I run From Burnout to Balance, which is my 12 module, 12-week group program where I walk you through the Seeds of Health and all of the modules that create conditions for lasting health and wellness through midlife and beyond. I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope you find inspiration in your healing journey today as you water these seeds of health and plant seeds in those around you for health and healing to occur.